It's just so beautiful in here. Hey everyone, I'm David, the Scottish man in a van. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, I've been living and travelling in this van now for over 2.5 years. I'm currently in Switzerland, and in this episode I'm going to answer some more of the questions my 500,000 followers have been sending me on social media. And I'm going to do it while showcasing these incredible landscapes of Switzerland before taking you to see one of the most incredible places I've ever been, the Aareschlucht Gorge. So let's go on a wee adventure. Okay, well, I'm going to try and answer your questions that you've been sending me whilst I'm driving, but I'll see if I can get through it, because some of the views are just absolutely sensational, and I'll show you them as I'm going as well en route to Aareschlucht. But one of the popular questions I've had is, how much does van life cost? You know, versus having a house and things like that. Now, I can only speak from my own experiences. It would be different for everyone. But I have the mindset that if I'm going to live in a van, then I'm going to travel. That's the whole purpose of it. I'm going to live and travel and visit new places and go and see new things and do new experiences. So that's where the majority of my costs will lie. It will actually be on diesel more than anything else. I mean, certainly whatever I would have used to spend on rent and council tax in the flat I had in Dundee, I spend that and probably more on diesel every single month. Now, of course, you can do it cheaper as well, especially if you work remotely and you could be sitting still for longer periods of time with a laptop out and things like that. I just don't tend to stay put for very long. I get itchy feet. I did this, as I mentioned previously in last week's video. I never got a chance to travel when I was young because I had my son when I was young. So, you know, this is why I'm doing it. It's to travel. And that there is a cost to that ultimately. And aside from fuel and things like that, I mean, I suppose it just depends on your van and your luck at times as well, because it depends on the type of van that you've got, the maintenance and upkeep of it. I'm not very handy when it comes to, you know, sort of looking after the car myself. My friend who owns a garage does that for me. But it can cost a lot keeping a van on the road, and they can be money pits. You know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I'll give you an example. I haven't had any big expenses really so much over the last few months, but there was a period there of about 10 months where I had to spend £7,000 on repairs. My clutch went up when I was up in the Highlands. I had to get a brand new clutch. I've had a new starter motor. I've had a new air conditioning unit. I've had wheel bearings needing done. I've had some welding done. I've had a new alternator put in. What else have I had done? Obviously brakes and disc pads and things like that as well. But I've had quite a lot of big jobs, and like I said, it was like, I think it was about £7,000 I spent in the period about 9 to 10 months. That's a lot of money on repairs, but at the end of the day, it's my home, you know. So it's one of these things you just kind of need to suck up really to keep the van on the road. And my van's done 156,000 miles, but the current engine was put in at 81,000, so the current engine's only done, you know, just over sort of 70,000 miles. But the next big things will probably be to get the timing belt changed and things like that, which will be done pretty shortly as well, which is a fairly big job. So the engine's only 75,000 miles old, but all the other parts of the van, things that I've had to replace, they're 150,000 miles old, if that makes sense. So it is a lot to keep the van on the road. That's probably a biggest expense. And then you've got monthly bills like insurance and things like that as well. So is it any cheaper than living in a home? For me, the short answer is no. It's not any cheaper, but I wouldn't swap it for the world. So what amazes me about driving through Switzerland as well, it is just the land of mountains and tunnels. Tunnels and mountains. There's just tunnels everywhere. And when you come out, you get these just beautiful views of the mountains in the distance. It's quite spectacular. I have been asked, you know, do you think will I ever get a house again and things like that? Maybe one day when I'm old, but right now I have no plans to move into another house. I thought, you know, when I first moved into the van, I thought, you know what, I'll maybe get 3 to 5 years out of this. But now, after the experiences that I've had, my own personal happiness, and how content I am with my life and how I'm living it, I don't foresee me going back into bricks and mortar house anytime soon. If anything, and I've joked about this with my parents and with my friends, you know, if I won the lottery, you know, tomorrow, the first thing I would do is buy a brand new converted van, 100%. You know, I wouldn't buy a big fancy house or anything like that. I'd buy a new van. That would be me. Which also leads to another question I've had is, have you thought about, you know, what you'll do when you're old, you know, really old if you like? And the short answer is, I just don't plan that far ahead. At the end of the day, my sort of mindset is, you know, life's for living. And, you know, the reality is that I might not ever get to old age. You know, that's just the reality of it. So I try to make as many days as I possibly can count, and living this life and with the lifestyle choices I've made, I really feel like I can do that better than I've ever been able to do it before. So I don't really think too much about later in life. Later in life is later. I'll deal with that when that time comes. Sorry, I have to interrupt myself. You've got to see this view. Let me turn the camera around. It's really allowed me to be able to have that sort of mindset, because the places that I've seen and the places that I go and the adventures that I go on, I just wouldn't swap them for the world. I do share an awful lot of, you know, the places that I go, of course, on social media. I did get asked the question about, do you ever just go some places or do things and just keep it for you yourself rather than sharing it? And the answer is categorically 100% yes. I do that all the time, and I think it's important. I can't be filming everywhere I go. There's so much that goes into it. You've got multiple cameras and things like that. It takes a lot of time. For a 15-minute, 20-minute episode, I'm going through around about 6 to 7 hours of footage, multiple cameras and everything. It's a lot. So yeah, sometimes I switch the cameras off and I just go somewhere to enjoy it for myself or with friends or whatever. I absolutely do that. Plus, I'm also a firm believer that there are certain places that should remain hidden. Most of the places that I showcase, or most of the places that I put in my reels and on my YouTube videos, they're places that visitors, tourists and local people, that's where they'll go to visit and things as well, and businesses in these areas do well from that type of tourism. I understand the sort of impacts that it can have negatively on certain areas as well. So I am very cautious about that. And I'm also cautious when I get told by locals, oh, you should go to this beach, or you should go here or go there and try that. If I get told those things and it's really for them, I don't share them. I just won't do it, because there are certain places that you just want, you know, to have to yourself and to keep quiet. Ultimately, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If anything, it's probably the most responsible way to do it. No way. Look at that. Oh God, honestly, driving here is something else, isn't it? And it just reminded me, actually, I did get sent a question about hobbies. And it was a question that I've never had before, really. Like, what do you do about hobbies? Because a lot of people will have, you know, equipment and things like that. And it is a really interesting question. It made me think. But in actual fact, moving into the van and doing what I'm doing has actually created new hobbies for me. This being one of them. Filming all these things. I mean, I only started sharing footage from my phone 2.5 years ago on Instagram and, you know, on Facebook and things like that for my friends and family around the world. I've got family all over the world that will be watching this. And it was for them. And it was also for me to sort of document my journey for myself. And it was something for me to look back on, you know, when I'm really old and things like that, to sort of say, yeah, look what I did that. That's the purpose of it, really. It's become a hobby, probably my main hobby. Filming, using different cameras, learning how to fly a drone, doing the editing and things like that, especially for YouTube, because there's so much that goes into the editing, the organisation and the editing for them. It's like a full-time job sometimes, putting these together. But for me, it's just a hobby. You know, as I explained last week, don't really get paid very much, if anything at all, from social media. So this has become a huge hobby for me, definitely, and I enjoy it. You know, if it felt like a chore, it felt like work, I probably wouldn't be able to put these out every single week, to be honest. But it's a joy to share it with people all over the world. Some of you who are watching this might not ever have the opportunity to come to Scotland or maybe do the things that I do for a number of different reasons. So that gives me a lot of sort of personal satisfaction and joy as well, that I can share a little bit of my journey and my adventures for other people to enjoy through the screen. But this lifestyle has also allowed me to reconnect with some previous loves that I had, like fishing. I always fished when I was younger and in my early teens, and then I just kind of forgot about it really until after the COVID lockdowns. It was one of the first things you could do. And that's when I first started watching hiking videos on YouTube, and which is what sort of drove me to want to go into the hills 2.5 years ago. So do I have the same hobbies I had before? No, probably don't. But it's given me new ones. Hiking's another one, of course, as well. And even, you know, some amateur photography. I mean, I don't have like a proper camera or anything to use to take my photos with. I just use my phone. But sort of taking nice pictures, again, that's become a nice little hobby for me as well, ultimately. It's a bit of a long answer, but the short answer is I've still got hobbies. They're just different from the ones I had before. Simple as that. Anyway, we're just about here. We're coming into Aareschlucht shortly. So I'll see you there. Now, I did actually come here last May and it was amazing. I didn't actually get the best day for it, but it's bright, it's sunny today. Honestly, cannot wait, because it is quite a sight and extremely humbling. This tunnel leads to Aareschlucht, a gorge carved not by machines or men, but by time itself. Over 10,000 years ago, as the last ice age drew to a close, the mighty Aare glacier began to melt. That meltwater surged downhill, crashing through limestone, cutting deeper with every passing season until the rock finally gave way. What's left is this, a 1.5 kilometre chasm up to 200 feet deep, with sheer cliffs that close in to just over a metre apart. The Aare River still rushes through here, glacial and powerful. Its cloudy, greyish blue-green colour comes from glacial flour, fine particles of rock ground down by ancient ice, still suspended in the water today. It's a reminder that the journey of this place is still ongoing. In 1988, engineers began building the first wooden walkways through the gorge, making it possible for the public to witness this natural wonder up close. For the last 125 years, they've been suspended above the river on platforms bolted into the cliff face. You're just minutes away from the quiet alpine town of Meiringen, best known for the nearby Reichenbach Falls, where Sherlock Holmes met his fate. But this gorge tells no fictional tale. This is a story written in stone and still being shaped by water today, and it is incredible. Well, that was the Aareschlucht Gorge. Second time I've been, and it never fails to impress. It is quite some place. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode, taking a little trip through Switzerland whilst answering some of the questions you've been sending me, followed by a little tour of one of the most spectacular gorges in Europe. Anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you next week. Like and subscribe for more van life adventures.